Okay, so let's take a look at the HackerRank contest that I talked about. So these particular contests consist of the problems for topic 1. So anyone can access this, so you don't have to be taking the course to access this particular contest. You can go in and then try to solve the problem and practice. But for the course, we will create another contest with exactly the same problem, so it will make up collecting the grade easier. So these are the problems in this context. So there are 10 of them. As you can see, the first 5, each of them have a max score of 5. Because they are example problems, we provide the solution code. And then the other 5 problems have sort of a score distribution. They add up to 100. And if you sort of already know how to program and just taking a look at this, I suggest you you can skip the other problem and just work on the problem Professor Goldluck's house. So starting with Professor Goldluck's house 2, the problem should be a little bit non-trivial even for people who already taken introductory to programming course. So let's let's go in. So yeah, for each of the example problems, I enabled C++, Java, and Python for this course for using to solve this challenge. But under C, I provided the solution code with extensive comments. So the material I covered in the video, they are also sort of covered in the comment. So if you are a real beginner, I suggest you read these comments carefully because they are basically teaching the C language basics. So let's go back to the slides to look at the problem description. So you are given information for n houses. Each of them has 3 numbers: a price, number of bedroom, and the square footage. And you are asked to calculate the price per square foot for each house. So essentially just the price divided by the footage. So the input, the first line contains integer n, give you a number of houses, and then there's n line after that giving this. And you are asked to output n lines. So let's look at the sample input output. So this is the sample input. You have 3, so we have 3 houses, and these are the information of the 3 houses. And then the sample output should have 3 lines, one for each of the house. And the first one is 100,000 divided by 1,000, so we have 100. So the second one illustrates integer division, so it always round down. So 150,999 divided by 1,000, the output will be 150. So when you use integers in your program and you do division, this is the behavior you get. And similarly, 500,000 divided by 3,000 is 166. So starting the second topic, we will cover what's known as the floating point number and double precision floating point number. Essentially, they are sort of computer how to or in C language how they can try to represent real number. It's impossible to represent all real numbers because there are infinite of them, and the computer by sort of they can only do things that are finite. But they'll represent a subset of real point number using either float type or double type. But in the current topic, we'll just use int, which stands for integers. Okay, so the basic solution idea is pretty trivial. So you first read n from input, store it somewhere, and then you repeat n times. Each time you read in the footage, bedroom, and price, and then you compute the price per square foot, and then you output it. So then on the next slide, we're going to have C code. And in C code, there are two ways to include the comments. One of them is you start by this \**, and then you write and then this comment, and it ends by star followed by \\\. So anything in between is a considered comment, and comments are for humans to read. So a computer will basically ignore that. And the second way of including comment is using double \\\, and the comment will start here, then we will end by end of the line. So, for example, here, so the next line will no longer be considered a comment. So return 0 will be a piece of code and not a comment. So in the first topic, every code you write is inside what's known as the main function. So essentially, you may write a big program. The computer will need to know where to start to execute the program. And what happens, the computer will, or rather compiler, will look for the function called main. So you need to define a function called main. And this is a definition for the function main, and all your code are inside this main function. And when you declare a function, you first need to provide the return type. So the function, if the function returns a value, you need to tell the compiler what type of value it will return. So here int is int is required to return an integer. And as you can see, at the end of this function, in the bottom of the screen, we have a return 0. So that's when we execute everything in the body, we will return 0. So by default, by convention, if your code executed correctly, if there's nothing wrong, then you will simply return 0. So if you encounter some error that shouldn't happen, then you may return some other value, sort of to indicate that things are wrong. So for this course, all main function always return 0. And there's this parenthesis here. When you define a function, you can also have arguments so that when you call the function, you pass something in. So for example, if you have a function that compute say the square root of a number, then you want to send that number in, then the function will return the square root of that number to you. So this main function doesn't take any argument. So there are also main functions that take arguments, but so this is a way for your program to interact with the environment. But again, for this course, our main function don't take any argument. So this is code for this problem. I added the line numbers, so these are not part of the program, these are line numbers, so just to make it easier for me to explain things. So it will take a while for us to go through every piece of thing in this code. In fact, there's one thing I ask you to sort of to bear with me for now, because I'm not going to explain how it works, which is line 3. Because I need this behavior of repeating n times, but I don't want to explain how to achieve that now, so that will be covered in topic 2. So I use something called a macro, so that's just sort of ignore how this works. Don't try to understand how it works if you don't already know how it works. And essentially what it does is repeat something n times. Okay, so when we compute, an important concept is variables. So variables are sort of a placeholder that can store values. So when we are computing things, sometimes we need to store something, so later we will use it again. So we do that using variables. And every variable need to have a type. So in this program, n is a variable, and similarly footage, bedrooms, price, and PPSF, these are variables. And they all have an integer type. So int is a keyword denote integer type. So int is one of the primitive types in C, and there are several other primitive types that I mentioned earlier. So we have a type name, and then we have one or more variable names, and at the end of the declaration, declaring this variable. So this essentially tell the computer, I'm going to use these variables, and their type is int, and there's a semicolon after that to sort of to end this, so that this whole thing then it become a statement. And we are also going to use, when we do computation, we are going to use expression. So for example, on line 11, we have a price divided by footage. So this is an expression, and the expression can be formed using variables and operators and constants, and also parentheses. So in fact, if you think of sort of arithmetic expression in elementary math, then they can be pretty much used here. It's just that multiplication is represented using star, because we don't have a multiplication sign on the computer keyboard. Well, actually, it's because the multiplication sign is easily confused with X. So from very beginning, it's sort of star is chosen to use as representation for multiplication. So that's an expression, and this equal actually is also an operator, and this whole thing is also expression. So this PPSF equals price divided by footage is also expression. So what it means, this equal sign here is called the assignment operator. What it means is you will calculate the expression to the right of this assignment, and you will get some value, and then you will store it to the variable on the left. So this is in fact, this is also expression. It also has its own value, and the value is the value that you eventually stored at this variable. And given this expression, you can add a semicolon at the end, and that will turn it into a statement. Because this video is too long, I'm going to break it up into two separate pieces. So let's take a break now.